Sammy the squirrel was small, even for a squirrel. He was the tiniest in his family, but what he lacked in size he made up for in spirit. Sammy was always full of energy, darting around the forest with a zest for life that was unmatched by any other squirrel. He had bright, shiny eyes that sparkled with curiosity. Every day was a new adventure for Sammy, and his eyes reflected the excitement he felt about exploring the world around him, and a fluffy tail that twitched with excitement. His tail was like a flag, waving to signal his joy and enthusiasm. Whenever Sammy was happy, which was most of the time, his tail would twitch and flicker, almost as if it had a life of its own. Sammy lived in a big, beautiful forest. The forest was his playground, filled with towering trees, rustling leaves, and the sweet scent of pine. It was a place of endless possibilities, where every tree branch was a new path to explore, and every rustle in the bushes was a potential new friend. He loved to scamper up and down the trees, his little claws clinging to the bark. The rough texture of the tree trunks felt familiar and comforting under his paws. Climbing was second nature to Sammy, and he could often be seen darting up and down the trees with incredible speed and agility. One sunny morning, Sammy was playing with his friends. The sun was shining brightly, casting a warm glow over the forest. The air was filled with the sounds of birds singing and leaves rustling in the gentle breeze. It was the perfect day for a game of chase. They were chasing each other through the branches, their happy chatter filling the air. The squirrels darted from branch to branch, their laughter echoing through the forest. It was a joyful scene, full of life and energy. "Come on, Sammy!" called his best friend, Rosie. Rosie was a lively squirrel with a mischievous glint in her eye. She loved to challenge Sammy to races and games, always pushing him to be his best. "Let's see who can reach the top of the oak tree first." Sammy loved to race. The thrill of competition made his heart race, and he never backed down from a challenge. He took a deep breath and scurried after Rosie, his little heart pounding with excitement. The oak tree was tall and majestic, its branches stretching high into the sky. Sammy's paws moved quickly, gripping the bark as he climbed higher and higher. He could hear Rosie laughing above him, urging him to catch up. With every leap and bound, Sammy felt a surge of exhilaration. The world below seemed to blur as he focused on reaching the top. Finally, with one last burst of energy, Sammy reached the highest branch, right beside Rosie. They both looked out over the forest, their hearts swelling with pride and joy. It was moments like these that made Sammy's life in the forest so special. Every day was an adventure, and every adventure was a chance to create memories with his friends. Sammy and Rosie climbed higher and higher, the ground looking farther away with each passing moment. Soon they were near the top of the oak tree, its branches swaying gently in the breeze. "Almost there!" Rosie called out, her voice muffled by the leaves. Sammy looked up. He saw Rosie perched on a branch, but there was a gap between their branches. To reach her, he would have to jump across. Sammy froze. The gap looked enormous. He had never jumped that far before. Sammy's heart sank. He had never felt this scared before. The world seemed to close in around him, and his tiny heart pounded in his chest like a drum. He wanted to be brave, but his paws felt like jelly. Every muscle in his body tensed up, refusing to move. He could feel the rough bark of the tree under his claws, but it offered no comfort. He looked down at the ground so far below. The distance seemed to stretch endlessly, making his head spin. The leaves rustled in the wind, whispering tales of other brave squirrels who had made the jump. What if he missed the jump? What if he fell? The thoughts swirled in his mind like a storm, each one more terrifying than the last. He imagined the hard ground rushing up to meet him, the pain, the failure. "What's wrong, Sammy?" Rosie called down. "You're almost there!" Her voice was a beacon of hope in his sea of fear. She had always been the braver one, the one who faced challenges head-on. Sammy took a deep breath. I can't," he stammered. "The gap is too big. I'm scared." His voice trembled, betraying the depth of his fear. He had never admitted his fears out loud before, and it felt both terrifying and liberating. Rosie looked at Sammy with understanding eyes. "It's okay to be scared," she said gently. Her eyes were filled with warmth and compassion, a silent promise that she would be there for him no matter what. "But you're braver than you think. Just take a deep breath, close your eyes and jump. I believe in you." Her words wrapped around him like a comforting blanket, giving him the strength he needed. He closed his eyes, took another deep breath, and felt a surge of determination. He could do this. He had to believe in himself, just like Rosie believed in him. With one final breath, he leaped into the air, trusting that his courage would carry him through. Sammy closed his eyes and pictured himself landing safely on Rosie's branch. He took another deep breath, and with a burst of courage, he leaped. Sammy had always been a cautious squirrel, often watching his friends make daring jumps from one tree to another. But today was different. Today he decided to take the leap himself. He had been practicing in his mind for days, visualizing every step, every movement. He knew the distance, he knew the height, and he knew he could do it. All he needed was that one moment of courage. For a moment he felt weightless, as if he were flying. The wind rushed past his fur and the world below seemed to blur. It was a feeling he had never experienced before, a mix of exhilaration and fear. Then his paws landed on something solid. The impact was gentle, almost as if the branch had been waiting for him all along. He felt the rough texture of the bark under his paws, a reassuring sign that he had made it. He opened his eyes and saw that he had made it. He was safe on Rosie's branch. The branch swayed slightly under his weight, but it held firm. Sammy took a moment to catch his breath, his heart still racing from the adrenaline. He looked around, taking in the view from his new vantage point. Everything seemed different from up here, more vibrant and alive. He felt a sense of accomplishment wash over him, a feeling he would cherish for a long time. "You did it, Sammy!" Rosie cheered, her voice filled with pride. "I knew you could!" Rosie had been watching from a nearby branch, her eyes filled with encouragement. She had always believed in Sammy, even when he doubted himself. Her cheers echoed through the trees, a melody of support and joy. Other squirrels joined in, their voices creating a chorus of celebration. Sammy felt a warmth in his chest, a sense of belonging and camaraderie. Sammy couldn't believe it. He had faced his fear and succeeded. The realization hit him like a wave, filling him with a newfound confidence. He had always been the cautious one, the one who played it safe. But today he had proven to himself that he could be brave, that he could take risks and succeed. He felt a surge of pride, a feeling that would stay with him for a long time. He learned that day that being brave didn't mean not being scared. It meant doing something even when you were afraid. Sammy realized that courage wasn't the absence of fear, but the triumph over it. He understood that everyone had fears, but it was how you faced them that defined you. He looked at Rosie and the other squirrels, feeling a deep sense of gratitude. They had supported him, believed in him, and now he believed in himself. Sammy knew that this was just the beginning of many more leaps of faith he would take in his life. Section 5. Sammy's new confidence. From that day forward, Sammy carried himself with a newfound confidence. He wasn't afraid to try new things, even if they seemed scary at first. He practiced his jumps, each one getting longer and more daring. He learned to climb to the very top of the tallest trees, feeling the wind ruffle his fur and seeing the whole forest spread out beneath him. He even tried new foods, like the juicy berries that grew high up in the canopy. Section 6. Exploring the world. Sammy's bravery inspired him to explore more of the forest. He ventured down paths he had never dared to travel before, discovering hidden meadows filled with wildflowers and sparkling streams teeming with fish. He met other creatures, like the wise old owl who lived in the hollow trunk of an ancient oak and the family of deer that grazed peacefully in the sun-dappled glades. Section 7. Sharing his story. Sammy loved to share his adventures with his friends and family. He would gather them around his favorite tree and tell them all about the wonders he had seen and the challenges he had overcome. He told them about the time he had to outsmart a hungry fox and the day he helped a baby bird reunite with its mother after it had fallen out of its nest. With each story, Sammy's legend grew. Section 8. Inspiring other squirrels. The other squirrels looked up to Sammy. They admired his courage and his zest for life. They too began to step outside of their comfort zones, trying new things and facing their fears. They learned that they were capable of much more than they had ever imagined. The forest, once a place of familiarity, became a playground of endless possibilities. Section 9. The importance of helping others. Sammy's bravery wasn't just about him. He used his courage to help others whenever he could. He would alert his friends to danger, warn them of approaching predators, and even share his food with those in need. He learned that true bravery wasn't just about facing your own fears, but about using your strength to help others overcome theirs. Section 10. A true friend. Sammy became known throughout the forest not only for his bravery, but also for his kindness and compassion. He was a true friend, always there to lend a helping paw or offer a word of encouragement. He learned that true strength came not from physical prowess, but from the courage to be kind, to show empathy, and to stand up for what is right. Section 11. Bravery and kindness. And so Sammy the squirrel, once the smallest and most timid of creatures, became a legend in the forest, a shining example of bravery, kindness, and the power of believing in yourself. His story was passed down from generation to generation, reminding all who heard it that even the smallest of creatures can achieve extraordinary things with a little bit of courage and a lot of heart.